Okay. So the question I had, which, I see the points being made here, but what I don't understand is why does the animal farming industry have so much more clout than, for example, the oil and gas or the plastic industry? Like, we're able to call those out to say that they're messing up the oceans or what have you, but why is it, I'm missing how come they have so much more power?
So we live in a system of normalized violence, and the foundation of that system is the violence we commit on animals. So this is why they have so much clout, because they are the foundation of this system of normalized violence. This is why in every government is subsidizing animal agriculture. Okay, every government. They subsidize it in so many ways. They actually give them money, they give them free government land, they can do whatever they want, because they are the foundation of the system. So this is why, when we were doing this movie, when I got involved, my wife said, "Be careful, because they're going to sue us." And so we had a discussion about it, because Oprah Winfrey got sued, and Howard Lyman got sued, and they each spent about $500,000, just to defend themselves. And so we debated about it, and then we said we have to do it anyway because it's our children's future. So I made a deal with her that I'll put my name on it. You'll see it's only my name on it. And then if they sue us, I'm going to divorce her and she can have all the money. So anyway, that was the deal. So she agreed. But they didn't sue us.
Thank you so much for producing the film. It has been a real eye-opener. I was just wondering that, what it brought across was a sense of real urgency. So I think a lot of work is being done at the demand side. And I just wanted to know whether because when I look at the government programs, the policies, the integrated rural development programs or the employment guarantee schemes, etc., they continue to focus on animal husbandry as a department where you're having, 25 chickens being given out to every household, or 3 cows or whatever, right, or having eggs in the midday meal and stuff like that. So is work being done at the policy level? Because I think based on the urgency, then both ends. So right, if you have a different scheme which the people can subscribe to, it makes the progression easier.
Yeah. I think we need to address it at the policy level also. We have to have NGOs, people who go lobby the government to stop subsidizing animal agriculture and start subsidizing organic plant agriculture. We are doing that in Canada and the US. So there should be organizations like that doing the work here, but I'm not aware of any.
The earlier question about why they have so much power is partly this. It's more than 100 years. These major organizations like the National Dairy Council and the National Livestock and Meat Board, et cetera, there's half a dozen of them, and they're just business interests. They've been manipulating situations of our education as well as our politics for at least the early part of the 20th century, if not sooner. So there's a long history of involvement with advancing their business interests. You minimize the cost, maximize the profits, everything else be damned. And there's certainly no concern at all about what the result of their work is on the animals or on the people that consume them.
Right.
So, overall, I thought the film was really brilliant. I mean, this is the second or third time I've seen it, but it's still the moments where these executive directors of major environmental groups and Greenpeace, I didn't remember that they even refused to talk to the guy. This is one of the leading, radical, the adventurous, courageous, really out there groups. I've been a member since like 72, and it was just so disappointing to see how blind. It's hard to imagine that they don't know, which was brought up, But these are good people. They really care about the environment. And yet the whole meat thing is just too challenging. And I don't think the meat industry supports Greenpeace. I don't think they're going to lose funders. There's something deeper in terms of their cultural and psychological attachment to these things, or their pessimism about the willingness of people to change. So they'll buy an electric car, but they won't stop eating, hot dogs. The thing I have a real question about was when he paused about 2/3 of the way through the film with the 1,100 deaths of environmental activists in Brazil specifically, or South America more broadly, whatever, just facing death to speak up, and he was wondering whether he should just stop and chuck the project and move on to something else, and he decided it was too important. But what was the consequences? When they pulled out funding, whoever the major funder was, he didn't identify who says, I'm sorry, but we're closing the cash register on your production costs. Somebody else must have stepped in to allow him to continue. What was the consequence, if any, to him personally or others that were involved in producing the film?
In fact, that's when they lost the funding, that's when they did a crowdfunding campaign, and I jumped in, and a few others jumped in with me. So we gave them the money so they could continue.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, it's in similar lines. I used to be supporter of Greenpeace. And one of the things with Greenpeace is that they are not taking funds from any of the organizations or industrialists or so. So then I don't understand, like, how can the meat lobby be actually funding them? That was one concern. And if it's so true, then I would want to not support them any further, and I would also like to advise others not to support them. So I just want to confirm on the same.
I don't know much about, is Greenpeace like Sierra Club, funded by members?
C means, I get the newsletter and all, and one of the major points that they mention is they are funded only by individuals like us, kinds. They don't have any industrial funds or organization as a policy matter for them. So then, if they are being funded by the meat industry, that means that they are cheating public.
No. I mean, that was a question he asked. I'm not sure if it's true or not. But if individuals are funding also, the organization tends to listen to the majority of the individuals who are funding them. So Sierra Club, for instance, is like that, right? So Sierra Club also does not talk about it. And but at least we got to interview them in the movie.
I would like to thank you because it's an eye-opener for people like me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
To each other. One is, these documentaries are great. But when I get on ground as an outreach volunteer, trying to talk to people, what I struggle with is this question that often comes of that veganism is equal to elitism, right? And often connected to caste politics, right? So what I'm trying to understand is if you could throw a little light on how do we reach out to people that are actually, part of the society and not just the upper middle class per se. So that's one. And two, if you could help me understand a little bit of how I can do my own research with respect to Indian statistics. Yesterday's presentation was great. I would like to know if there's somewhere I could continue doing the same research so that I talk to people when I'm on ground. Thank you.
So with respect to the veganism as elitism trope, I've heard this many times. In India, the base diet is fundamentally vegan. It's roti, sabji, dal chawal. I mean, there is no animal product there. If you go sit in a village and see what people are eating, they're eating vegan food. So, and we are the land of ahimsa. This is the land of ahimsa. So this is where the concept of non-violence in every act that you do was born. So veganism to me is returning back to our roots. This is not elitism, it's returning back to who we really are. So it's coming home, especially for our culture, for the Indian culture. And I'd be happy to give you all my slides from yesterday and you can start from that. And there are other people working on India-specific statistics for the environment that you should connect with. I think Darshana may have contacts for you.
Yeah, so I just want to go back to the first question, that how come the meat industry is so powerful and the others are not as powerful?
Yeah.
And you said that is the foundation and all that.
Right, right.
That wasn't entirely clear to me. I mean,
Right.
I didn't feel it, I didn't get the full answer to that, if you could speak more.
Sure, sure. Actually, he made a point. Jordan made a point there that meat industry has been around a lot longer. So they've been around since for 10,000 years. They've been sort of, influencing government and government institutions. So they are embedded in it. They're embedded in it. If you look at who runs the Department of Agriculture, it's usually someone from the meat industry. So the government is the meat industry, meat and dairy industry.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes.
I think what's really fascinating to contextualize this story of America and also looking at Brazil, that it's actually the majority nations which are under this neoliberal gaze and are being used as the factories of the needs of the Western world. So for example, if you look at Brazil, why is the meat industry in a sense so violently going forward over there, being an emerging market, having that kind of force where the production is really, really high? And I think this film is, it's an interesting sort of lens to look at India also as an emerging market and how we are sort of getting influenced by the globalization and the neoliberal gaze, and how we are blindly sort of following the trends of let's say the West, and without really having any kind of pride of our own sort of value systems. So responding to the caste system, the question of the caste system, etc. Of course, there are a lot of things which are archaic about the caste system, that because we are a post-colonial nation, we cannot really break it down so easily. But if you look at, let's say, the agricultural community in India has never slaughtered the cow for sustainability purposes actually, and the the size of the cattle for the size of the field has always been in proportion to some kind of ecological balance in a sense. So I guess what I would like to know is that, how do you kind of look at this film, which is so much about a meat industry or a culture that takes pride actually. I mean, if you look at, I was living in the Netherlands, they have pride in eating meat. I mean, this is something that is so culturally embedded inside of themselves. And then we are a nation that actually have pride in not hurting animals. Right. So how can we sort of share our knowledge in a way where we are not influenced by our own post-colonial gaze, where we feel that we don't have something to teach to the Western world, and how do we kind of go forward on that mode of sustainability?
Yeah, we have to show the West, literally, this is a merging of the West and the East, or the South and the North that's happening now, okay? We are not a post-colonial nation. I call ourselves a neo-colonial nation. We are still colonized. We are all colonized around the world. Okay, but India always had this free and creative inner world, spiritual world, and a rigid and doctrinaire outer world in the caste system. And the West had a free and creative outer world, material world, and a rigid and doctrinaire inner world. And so we are now merging the two. Sometimes you'll get the worst of both worlds, but we should be promoting the best of both worlds, right? And so that's where we are headed. That's what we see Vegan World 2026 to be, where we are merging the best of Indian culture with the best of Western culture and putting it together.
Morning, Sailesh, and thank you for a wonderful movie, which is an eye-opener for everybody, I'm sure. I would like to know, is somebody going to produce a similar movie based on India, and is the data available on various aspects which are shown in the movie?
Right.
That would be really great.
There are a lot of people who have been talking to me about that. I've heard 3 or 4 people say they want to create a movie like that.
Doctor, one question from me. After yesterday's lectures and the memorial lecture, so one of the questions which they came up was, if we go vegan or if we stop eating cows and stop eating dairy, then what happens to all the cows which are already existing? How do we take care of them for the next whatever years? Because maybe you will have to give them more fodder, and that will actually result in more whatever damage.
Right.
So what's the
So I would
solution
say
for that?
stop breeding them first. Okay, when you stop breeding them, then as our production, as our demand drops, our production should drop, so that there are lesser and lesser cows for us to take care of when we reach zero. Okay, when zero demand.
We are stuck with whatever we have, I think.
Yeah.
I have a slightly different question. See, what is one of the issues that is plaguing most of the developing world, especially India, is opportunities for people to work. And currently, the policies of the government, for example, giving a cow or giving a bunch of chickens, is towards trying to figure out if there is a new opportunity that is developed for farmers who depend on rain-fed agriculture, for example. So if there is a story which goes along what we are seeing for the last 2 days, which also says that here is a way to create new opportunities, new occupations, new ways of how you can engage yourself meaningfully, I think this message will be far stronger. That's my observation. So any comments on that?
Yeah.
Any work that has been done on that?
Yeah, you heard Luke Marsh yesterday talk about food forests, growing food forests. Rather than giving people an opportunity to grow animals when their rain-fed agriculture is failing, you're basically giving them a way to make the rain-fed agriculture fail even more. That's what we are doing when we give them animals, because that's going to destroy the environment even more. So if you instead give them an opportunity to grow food forests and fruit trees and nut trees and so on, they'll have continuous income from that point on. This is why I was saying, the policy should be based on what is really good for the farmer, not what's good for some politician somewhere, right? So it really should be about promoting plant agriculture and discouraging animal agriculture. It's not good for the planet, it's not good for our health, it's not good for anybody.
Dr. Rao, can I say something in response to those earlier questions? We don't have to wait to a really brilliant, high-quality production, from really talented, committed people like what we just saw. I mean, it's really an incredible piece of work just as a film, the pacing, the editing, the holding the shot on the silent executive who can't talk when answered a very direct, poignant question about what they're doing every single day, and they're silent. Those moments of silence are so powerful.
Thank you.
So there's really a lot of skill there. We don't have to wait for that in terms of India. There are Indian voices that speak to this issue, and the one that I'm most familiar with, there must be others, but because she's all over the world and she writes and speaks in English, is Vandana Shiva. And her research farm in Uttarakhand is called Navdanya. She's absolutely brilliant, PhD in quantum physics. She won the Alternative Nobel Prize in 1982. Her latest book is Soil, Not Oil. She really has a very large global perspective, but focuses on teaching Indian farmers to make a viable life on their farm without chemicals. She doesn't really talk about veganism as a concept so much, but it's fundamentally a low impact, compassionate attitude toward sustainability and a real vigorous and courageous defense against the incursion of these brutal multinational corporations, primarily from America, that are just trying to take more of what India has to offer and leave death and destruction in its wake. One other thing, being an American in Pune, I mean, the last time I ate at McDonald's was probably 50 years ago, but you know, there's probably 6 or 7 or 8 McDonald's in Pune alone, and I'm sure they don't serve beef. That's not allowed, right? But I'm wondering how many Indians know that McDonald's is the largest killer of beef in the world. And although you can't buy beef at their store, at their so-called restaurant, you're giving your money to an organization that is responsible for the largest killer of beef in the world. As a company, as an international company, they are singularly responsible for more death of beef cattle than anybody else in the world. And, oh, by the way, and PETA India is very active, and they have a wonderful film on YouTube called Glass Walls, from Paul McCartney saying if all the slaughterhouses had glass walls, nobody would eat meat or everybody would be a vegetarian. So this really nice film called Glass Walls, it's only 9 minutes long, but it's made in India for Indians, both in Hindi and in English, taking you inside the Indian slaughterhouses and the dairies, and you know, it's not like someplace in Australia or England or US, it's, you know, right here. It's a very powerful piece of work that localizes these issues and makes it directly poignant for Indian viewers.
Okay.
Can I add something to his question about what is being done? The FSSAI recently said that we need to move to a plant-based diet because of climate. So the government themselves know. And the only thing is we need more people pushing them. We don't have them, so we need you to join us.
And I just want to add that there's a very beautiful film called The Plastic Cow, which is made in India about the situation of cows in India. And it's a must watch, and it's only half an hour long, and you can find it on YouTube. And I also want to say that PETA has made a video just on the Indian dairy industry, which can be found in Hindi and English on YouTube. Just so that you don't think that this is something, a problem that's only happening in the West. The Plastic Cow, and you just look up PETA dairy, and the film is just on dairy, in horrors in the Indian dairy industry. And this is, you know, it makes it clear that this is happening all over India, because somehow when we see Cowspiracy, we think, oh, this is happening in the West and we aren't really doing the same.
Hi, Madhvi, can I just take last one?
Okay.
Madhvi.
Okay, just this last one, please. Yeah.
Hi, Sailesh. Beautiful movie and pretty much an eye-opener, actually. I just wanted to say that, you know, the concept of being vegan is pretty new to India. I mean, you know, we are just waking up, basically. And though I belong to, you know, the plant agriculture, you know, sector, yet I don't see much of this talk going on, right from grassroots levels to, you know, the higher authorities, the government. But it is a pretty much, I mean, you know, as you said, yes, there are a lot of subsidiaries and everything going on for animal husbandry. But if we actually want to start talking, I mean, you know, based on your experiences with other countries, you know, should it be at the farmer level, or do you think it should be at the consumer level, or should it be at the government level? I mean, where does the adaptability or, you know, the acceptability start actually? So,
yeah.
You know, yeah.
So at the consumer level, I mean, at the level of, I wouldn't say consumer, I don't want to put us in a position of just being consumers, you know, we are human beings. Thank you. At our level, vegan is really not foreign to us. It is ahimsa. It's in our DNA. It's just an implementation of ahimsa in the modern context. Okay? So we need to look at it from that perspective. This is us. This is the land of ahimsa. Okay? This is about our culture. And so we need to inspire Indians, people of India, to realize that the world is coming to us now. Okay? The world is now embracing ahimsa around the world. And we need to lead it, not fall behind. We need to be at the forefront of this. So this is why The Land of Ahimsa that Dolly is filming, I think it's going to be a very important movie for India.